Okay, so good morning everyone. Today we're going to discuss week number 2 for our module in general biology, fourth quarter. So module number 2 is the gas exchange in animals and plant. So the continuation of module 2 is the blood transport in animals. So but first, let's focus on gas exchange in plant and animals. Here are the objectives of our discussion. At the end of the lesson, you are expected to first describe the mechanism of gas exchange in both plants and animals. Second, explain the structure and function of the respiratory system in various organisms. Third, identify the role of xylem and phloem in plant transport. Fourth, compare and contrast open and closed circulatory system in animals. Fifth, understand the importance of gas exchange and transport system of all living organisms. For the essential question, at the end of our discussion, you are tasked to answer this first question. Uh, how do the process of gas exchange, transport, and circulation in plants and animal work together to support life and maintain the homeostasis within the different environment? So your answer can be posted on the comment box. Here are the terminologies. First one is external respiration. That is the process of exchanging gases between the atmosphere and the lungs. And then the internal respiration, that is the gas exchange between the blood and the cells of the body. Next is the respiratory system. Respiratory system is a network of organs and tissue that help us breathe. Gas exchange. So this illustration shows the process of gas exchange in human respiratory system. It shows how oxygen and carbon dioxide are exchanged between the lungs and the blood. So as you can see here in the illustration, the gas exchange shows the different uh, organ responsible for the respiratory system of a human. So we have the nasal cavity. Nasal cavity is an organ responsible for filtering the air or the and also moisten the air before it enters our lungs. We have the throat, or also known as the pharynx, and then we can see the voice box or the larynx. Those are the passageway for air and sound production. We have the windpipe, also known as trachea. It conducts air from throat. It conducts air from the throat to the bronchi. So we have the bronchi, the two branches that directs air into each lungs, and we have the right and left lungs. Those are organs, no? As you can see, responsible for exchanging the gas. We have also the diaphragm. So the diaphragm is a muscle that contracts and relaxes the uh, lungs. So it facilitates the breathing of our human body. So that those are the organs that is responsible for the gas exchange. Other than that, if we see cellular gas respiration or gas exchange in our body, it extend to the gas exchange at our alveoli. Okay, so if we zoom in the air sacs, or also known as alveoli, which is described to be a uh, tiny sacs of air where the oxygen enters the blood and carbon dioxide are being removed. So with the use of capillaries, of course, capillaries is the smallest blood vessels in our body. So there, the oxygen and carbon dioxide exchange happens. So this image shows how blood circulation happens during the gas exchange. So, what really is a gas exchange? So, gas exchange is also function of the respiratory system. In plants, the gas exchange is carried out in a simple manner during aerobic respiration. Uh, in simple manner, while aerobic respiration happens in animals. Animals are very dependent on plants because plant is the one who produces oxygen as their byproduct for us to perform cellular respiration within our body to create to break down glucose and um, to create chemical energy known as the ATP or adenosine triphosphate. So the plants are also dependent on animals in the form of carbon dioxide because animals is the one who produces carbon dioxide, which is essential for the photosynthesis in plant respiration. So as you can see here in our PowerPoint, it shows the carbon dioxide and oxygen exchange using the capillaries at the end of our air sacs or alveoli. We have types of gas exchange in simple organism and complex organism. Under simple organism, the gas exchange that doesn't require specialized surfaces, many organelles to perform the oxygen carbon dioxide exchange. Most of them uses a direct diffusion wherein the carbon dioxide has been released and oxygen will be enter the body. So one example of the direct diffusion are single cell organism like bacteria and amoeba. They do need oxygen, but they doesn't need nose, pharynx, larynx. On the other hand, we have complex organism. So this complex organism, their gas exchange requires specialized respiratory surfaces, different organs, to response in the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide. So the degree of complexity of gas exchange in organism depend in a way of on the relative complexity of organisms body organization. So we have several type of gas exchange. Those are gill system, the internal and external, tracheal system, and the very common, which is the lung system. So this image shows the different gas exchange. This is the external gills, internal gills. So we have the amphibians for the external gills. For internal gills are mostly aquatic organism. We have the tracheal system, mostly insects. And we have the lung system, which is mostly on large animals. How about a simple organism? So they have a direct diffusion. So the gas exchange in simple animals, which is mostly aquatic organisms such as protists and some microscopic animal, exchange gases directly with the water on their surrounding through their cell membrane. So the cell membrane consists of osculum, ostia, and opening, no, which allows them to filter water and diffuse carbon dioxide and oxygen. So other aquatic animals that exchange gases directly with body cells and environment includes sponges, cnidarians, and some worms. So they have this very thin skin that directly diffuses carbon dioxide and oxygen. So majority of the macroscopic aquatic animals uses gills for gas exchange, such as fishes, and aquatic uh, adaptive organ that is equivalent to the lungs is most terrestrial animals. So this image shows the simple gas exchange in most sponges and cnidarians. So as you can see, those openings or holes in their body represents the cells that directly diffuses oxygen and carbon dioxide. How about human respiratory system? How they carry on the gas exchange? So we have different processes. One of them is the breathing. Breathing is an involuntary process that occurs simultaneously within the circulation of the blood. That's why later on, once we're done with the gas exchange, we will proceed to the transport system of blood in our body. So this action is essential since we obtain oxygen from the environment, which eventually is transported to the rest of our body with the involvement of the blood protein known as hemoglobin. So breathing consists of inhalation and exhalation. Inhalation is a process wherein the diaphragm contracts and it moves down while the air are being inhaled. uh, During that process, the rib cage expanded for the larger space of the inhaled air molecules. So, as the rib cage expand, the rib muscles contract. Next is the exhalation. Here in exhalation, the diaphragm relaxes and it moves up. Therefore, the carbon dioxide and other air molecule which is not needed in our respiratory system will be exhaled or released. So the rib cage gets smaller as rib muscle relaxes. So the breathing is a process where we obtain oxygen and then through exhalation we exhale or releases waste product which is carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide is a byproduct or waste material in our body during the cellular respiration. Carbon dioxide are being excreted through the process of exhalation. This gaseous waste goes out of the body involuntarily. So the breathing is simply defined as a process of inhaling and exhaling. What is the mechanism of breathing? So the action of breathing in and out is due to change of pressure within the thorax and comparison with the outside. So inhalation, the diaphragm moves down, forcing air into airways. So the nose, the larynx, pharynx, and then the bronchial up to the lungs and air sacs. The intercostal muscle contract and enlarge the cavity even more for the more space. And then the air will enter the lungs while the membrane move with the contraction. Surface tension in alveoli and surfactant keep them from collapsing. And the other muscles can force a deeper inhalation. Exhalation. So the diaphragm moves up, forcing air out. Intercostal muscle relaxes, shrinking the cavity. Membrane moves with the contraction. The surface tension in alveoli keeps them from collapsing, and other muscles can force a deeper exhalation. So the atmospheric pressure is 780 mmHg. So the pressure is necessary for breathing, which is why it is difficult to breathe in high altitude and also why a punctured lungs can be dangerous because while we are breathing, we are also dealing with this amount of atmospheric pressure. So when you are on a higher altitude, it is more harder to have a full breath. So breathing versus respiration. What is the difference? Breathing is a act of bringing air in and out of the lungs. Consists of inhalation and exhalation. It is known as the external mechanical process of acquiring air and releasing air molecule or waste product. While respiration, or also known as cellular respiration, is a process when the glucose and oxygen combine to produce carbon dioxide, water, and ATP. It is known as internal chemical process. Why does the breathing known as external mechanical process? It is the mechanical way on how we acquire oxygen and release carbon dioxide. And the oxygen when the oxygen is in the red blood cells, it will be used for the internal chemical process for us to break down the glucose and create an energy, which is the ATP. So here in gas exchange, it is divided in four stages. The first one is breathing. Breathing is the movement of air in to and out of the lungs, followed by the external respiration. That is the process in the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide between the air and the blood in the lungs. So it happens in the alveoli, wherein capillaries are present. And then it is followed by internal respiration. So once the oxygen is in the blood, or the oxygen and carbon dioxide, it is happen when the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide between the blood and the body of our cells. After that, we have the carbon dioxide and oxygen transport. It is the movement of gases between the lungs and other body parts. For the gas exchange, so it refers to the process of oxygen and carbon dioxide moving between lungs and our blood cells, which is the RBC, which occurs by diffusion. So how does the oxygen move? The blood in our capillaries surrounding the alveoli, so as you can see here in our PowerPoint, the alveoli has a lower concentration of oxygen than air in the has a lower concentration of oxygen than the air in the alveoli, which has just been inhaled. So the both of alveoli and capillaries have walls which are only one cell thick and allow gas to diffuse across them. So what happened is, since it is diffusion from higher to lower concentration. So the carbon dioxide and oxygen are diffuses. And then, how does the carbon dioxide move along with the gas exchange? The blood in the surrounding of capillaries has a higher concentration of carbon dioxide than the inspired air due to its being a waste product on our circulatory or cellular respiration. Therefore, the carbon dioxide diffuses the other way. So from capillaries, alveoli, and it will be exhale. While oxygen, so from inhaled alveoli to capillaries. So that is how the oxygen and carbon dioxide move within the air sacs. So this is the process of the gas exchange between the alveoli and capillary. So as you can see, the blood from pulmonary artery will enter. So it consists of a poor oxygen or deoxygenated blood. So the capillaries, the alveolar membrane, those are the respiratory membrane. The surfactant fluid allows the air sacs or the alveoli to exchange oxygen, and at the same time para hindi siya mag-collapse. So yun po yung mga parts. So once the oxygen enters the alveoli, the oxygen will diffuse to the red blood cells. Ayan. And then The carbon dioxide will diffuse outside, or it will release from the oxygenated blood. It will become oxygenated blood. Okay, from blood poor in oxygen. Once the gas or oxygen has been diffused, it will become blood rich in oxygen. Okay, so the flow, so from pulmonary artery, it will flow to the pulmonary veins. Okay, the respiration has two parts, the external and internal. So external, that is a process between the environment and the lungs, while internal, that is the process of exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide between the blood and the cells. So it will start in our nose. Nose, it is described to have two openings. No? So the two openings in the nose serve as the entrance for the passage of air into our body. So these openings are called nostrils. Okay, so those are the nostrils. Nostrils. The nostrils open in the basal passage, the cavities that extend from nostril to our throat. So in the nose, air is cleaned, moistened, and warm. Preparation for the air molecule to enter our respiratory organ or system. The air passing through the nose is filtered in the presence of a coarse hair projecting from the inner wall of the nostril. So it created a mucous membrane, which is a layer of specialized cell, which is lined on the nasal passage. This cell secrete mucus, which is moist, thick, and gummy. So the water that moistens it comes from the air. Therefore, the bacteria and dust may stick into it. Okay, so we have a process of purifying them. So things for the cilia. So those uh, hair are a microscopic hair on the surface that filters the air. Okay, uh, it is a microscopic hair on the surface cells of the mucous membrane which move back and forth at the time to move any material in and out outside of the nose. So once the air is cleaned, moistened, and warm, the next part of respiratory system is pharynx. This is the second stage or part wherein the air will flow, which is known as the throat. So it is found at the back of the mouth. So here is the pharynx. Okay, so nostril, the nose, and then the pharynx. So it contained a passage for food and air. When food is swallowed, the fluff known as epiglottis presses down and covers the opening of the passage. So during the inhalation, the epiglottis is in an upright position and air molecules in the trachea or windpipe. So which is known as the cartilaginous tube. So so it is important for us to not talk during the uh during eating because epiglottis might open it and then some food particles might enter the respiratory system, not in the esophagus. So here is the pharynx and epiglottis. The third stage where the air flows is in the larynx. Larynx is also known as voice box or the Adam's apple. So it is more prominent in males compared to females. Okay? So that is because of the hormones. So it is located at the upper end of the trachea. So this is the larynx. And so the purpose of larynx is to produce sound when air is forced past two vocal cords, which is the voice box that stretches across the larynx. So the pitches and the volume of the sound depend on the amount of tension received by the vocal cords and the amount of air forced onto them. So this is the uh, laryngeal web, epiglottis, and then the tracheal wing. The fourth is trachea. So it is called as windpipe. So this is an example of a windpipe. So it is located in front of the esophagus. It is about 10 centimeter long and 2.5 centimeter wide. It is lined with mucous membrane and cilia. So this cilia moves mucus, any materials in it toward the throat where the mucus is cough out. Okay, so this is trachea. Followed by bronchi. So trachea is divided into two hollow branches for the two bronchi. So each bronchus is attached in the left or right lungs. So within the lungs, the bronchi branches into a smaller tube. So the inner lining of the bronchi is lined also with cilia and mucus, which help for the filtering of air. So this is the bronchi. Okay, this is the real image of a bronchi. Then we have the lungs. So lungs, we have the left and the right lungs. They are described to be large, spongy, and consist of elastic sac-like. So they are suspended from each side of our heart inside the chest cavity. So inside the lungs, the bronchus divided into even more smaller branches. The bronchial tube, each are repeatedly into even smaller microscopic tube known as bronchioles. So at the end of the bronchioles, we have the alveoli or air sacs. So the alveoli is surrounded with capillaries where the gas exchange happens. Okay, so yung tinatawag nating internal respiration. Okay, so this is the bronchioles, and then the alveoli. So once the air reaches the alveoli, the internal respiration happens. So it involves gas exchange between the blood and cells of the body. So the air that we inhale is a mixture of gases which include nitrogen, oxygen, and carbon dioxide. Of these gases, oxygen is the most important and only gas we needed. So the air sacs oxygen diffuses through the capillaries into our bloodstream, wherein the red blood cells will carry out and then distribute the oxygen throughout our body. So when the blood reaches a cell with less oxygen, the oxygen from the blood separates from the hemoglobin and the cell absorbs the oxygen. Okay? So so therefore, the cell give off the waste in the form of carbon dioxide and water. So the carbon dioxide and water reaches the lungs, both passes into the space of air sacs and exhaled by the lungs. Because from that point of view, the higher concentration area and to lower concentration. So that's how diffusion happen in our respiration. How about plants? So how do they exchange gases, oxygen and carbon dioxide? Since we're we're done with the human or animals, how about the plants? So plants need oxygen too. So plants obtain the gases they needed through their leaves. So during the daytime, the carbon dioxides enter and oxygen leaves the plant. And during nighttime, the oxygen enter and carbon dioxide are released. This require oxygen for respiration and carbon dioxide for photosynthesis. So in gas exchange in plants, they doesn't need specialized structures such as lungs, nostrils. Okay, they have a stoma. Okay, stoma is a opening where the oxygen and carbon dioxide are being exchanged. Okay, so stoma is consists of guard cells that allows oxygen and carbon dioxide to enter and leave the plant cell. Okay, so this is an illustration showing how the gas exchange happen in plants. So once the plant needed oxygen, it will and the guard cells. Okay, the guard cells. Guard cells will enter and then let the oxygen enter or carbon dioxide to leave the stem or uh, leave the plant cell. If it doesn't need gases such as carbon dioxide and oxygen, the guard cell closes. Okay, so next is turgor pressure. Okay, so it is called turgidity, which is the main pressure of the cell content against the cell wall in plant cell. So turgid plant contains more water than flaccid cell and exert a greater pressure on its cell wall. So turgor is a force exerted outward on the plant cell wall by the water contained in the cell. So this force gives the plant rigidity and may help to keep it erect, and it will result in the bursting of the cell. Some of the plant acquire oxygen through specialized parts, which is the prop roots known as uh, pneumo, pneumotropes, pneumanotropes. So the aeration roots used for gas exchange, particularly in wetland, since since water contain relatively little oxygen. So the roots may grow down from the stem, such as uh, adventitious roots known as prop roots, or up from the roots, or a snub or spike. So as you can see, these are the prop roots. So they typically covered with lenticels and filled with spongy tissue. And one example of this plant are mangroves. So they need specialized parts to acquire more oxygen or gases for them to process the photosynthesis. So they need extra help from their roots. Okay, so that's it.